Chosen one, hear this carefully. This moment is not random, and you are not here by accident. Heaven has just released a sealed scroll, and your name is written on in gold. While the world around you kept moving, while you were sleeping, distracted, or unaware, Archangel Michael shifted your file from waiting to urgent. What was delayed has now been activated. What was dormant has been marked now. This very moment has been labeled in heaven as your point of no return. The countdown has already begun, and you didn't stumble into it. You were led. Right now, as you are hearing these words, heaven is repositioning you for a divine appointment that cannot be postponed. This is not pressure meant to frighten you. This is urgency meant to awaken you. The clock you feel ticking is not counting down to loss or disaster. It is counting down to destiny. Archangel Michael is standing at the threshold, holding a door that has been closed for a long time, and it is only being held open for a short window, 10 seconds in the spirit. Not because heaven is cruel, but because timing matters. Some doors only open when obedience meets urgency. If something in your spirit feels stirred, if you sense weight, heat, or recognition as you listen, that is not emotion, that is confirmation. Heaven is getting your attention because this moment carries consequence. Stay with this message until the very end, because we will pray together and seal this word over your life. What you do with these words matters. Your response matters. Even now, heaven is watching how you respond. Chosen one, let this be your activation. If your heart is recognizing truth, if your spirit is leaning forward instead of pulling back, type answer in the comments. Let that simple act be your declaration. Let heaven see that you are willing to respond. You are not alone in this moment. There's a community of chosen ones rising together, learning to move with divine urgency instead of delay. This is your moment. You were not overlooked. You were not forgotten. You were prepared for now. Chosen one, let me take you deeper into what is unfolding right now, because this moment is not just about hearing words. It is about awakening to what has been happening behind the scenes while you thought nothing was moving. Heaven has not been silent. Heaven has been watching, waiting, and preparing. And now, what was once whispered is being spoken plainly, because subtlety is no longer enough. This is a moment that requires your full attention, your awareness, and your response. You must understand this clearly. The urgency you feel is not pressure meant to break you. It is alignment meant to awaken you. The 10 seconds you are hearing about are not designed to scare you into action. They're designed to shake you out of delay. Heaven is not rushing you because you are behind. Heaven is accelerating you because you are ready. There's a difference. Fear-driven urgency drains you, but divine urgency sharpens you. It brings clarity. It cuts through confusion. It pulls you into focus. God is not asking you for perfection in this moment. He is asking you for awareness. He is asking one simple but sacred question. Will you answer? Not tomorrow. Not when life gets quieter. Not when everything makes sense. But now, right here, right when the invitation is in front of you. Because timing in the spirit does not move according to convenience. It moves according to obedience. When you respond, timing unlocks. When you hesitate, doors do not slam shut, but they do not remain open forever. Your response matters because it activates assignment. Heaven works through agreement. God may initiate, angels may be dispatched, and doors may be unlocked, but you still have to step forward. This is why your yes carries so much weight. It is not just a word. It is a key. It is alignment between heaven's movement and your willingness. And right now, heaven is asking for alignment. Let me reveal something that will bring clarity rather than condemnation. The resistance you felt has not always come in the form of obvious darkness. It has not always looked like temptation or rebellion. Most of the time, it has looked like busyness, noise, endless responsibilities, endless scrolling, endless tasks that leave you tired but not fulfilled. The enemy does not need to destroy you if he can distract you. He does not need to push you into sin if he can keep you postponing obedience. Think about how many times you felt a nudge, an urge to pray, to read, to listen, to pause, and how easily it was delayed. Later, you told yourself, Tomorrow, when I have more time. And later came and went. Tomorrow became yesterday, and the moment passed quietly. That was not coincidence. That was strategy. Because distraction dulls discernment. Noise numbs sensitivity. And when you're constantly occupied, you can miss the very signals heaven sends to guide you forward. Scripture warns us to be alert, not because we are weak, but because awareness is protection. You're not being judged for moments you missed. You're being awakened so you don't miss this one. This message is not about shame. It is about clarity. Heaven is not pointing out your distractions to condemn you. Heaven is exposing them so you can finally step out of them. Because right now, delay is no longer neutral. This moment carries consequence, not punishment, but potential. Understand this. The 10 seconds you keep hearing about are not a threat. They are mercy. They are heaven leaning close one more time and saying, pay attention. This matters. God is not counting down to see you fail. He is counting down to see you align. He is giving you an opportunity to meet acceleration with readiness. Because what is coming next will move quickly and slow responses will no longer work. Heaven is moving in accelerated time. That is why things may have felt strangely still before now. Preparation often feels like stagnation when you don't know what it's preparing you for. You've been in a long season of waiting, learning, unlearning, enduring, and refining. And over time, waiting can numb your expectation. You get used to stillness. You stop bracing for movement. But suddenly, movement begins. And if you're not alert, acceleration can feel overwhelming instead of exciting. God has declared that what once took years will now happen in moments. What once required prolonged struggle will now shift suddenly. This is not because you earned it through effort alone, but because you endured long enough to be trusted with speed. Acceleration without maturity destroys people. Acceleration with preparation positions them. You have been prepared more than you realize. Picture this clearly. Imagine a door you have stood in front of for years. You prayed at it. You knocked. You cried. You questioned yourself. Sometimes you walked away in frustration. Sometimes you leaned against it in exhaustion. It didn't open, not because it wasn't meant for you, but because the timing wasn't right. And over time, you stopped expecting it to move. You learned to live near a closed door. But now, on the other side, the key has turned. Archangel Michael is standing there, not forcing you through, not dragging you forward, but holding the door open. The hinges are loose. The resistance is gone. The only thing required now is movement. One step, a decision, a response. The door will not chase you. You must step forward. This is where faith becomes embodied, not theoretical. Heaven is inviting you to participate. That is why you're being asked to speak. Words matter in the spirit. When you say, I step forward, I say yes. I answer the call. You're not convincing God. You are aligning yourself. Faith is not passive agreement. It is active participation. Your voice activates what your faith has been holding. Nothing about this timing is random. You are not seeing this message because of an algorithm, chance, or curiosity. Heaven orchestrates encounters. Angels are messengers, and this is a message. It is a divine interruption, one designed to pull you out of autopilot and into awareness. There are moments in life that divide timelines. Before this, after this. This is one of them. You may not see the full picture yet, and you don't need to. You only need to recognize the invitation. Scripture reminds us that people are positioned for such a time as this. Not for every time, not for a safer time, but this time, right now. Heaven has been watching you through every disappointment you survived, every delay you endured, every moment you almost quit but didn't. You didn't stay strong by accident. You stayed because something ahead required you intact. At this exact second, pieces are aligning that you cannot yet see. Conversations are forming. Decisions are being made. Doors are shifting. What you have been praying for is not forgotten. It is in motion. But motion meets obedience. Alignment meets response. And heaven is waiting, not impatiently, but intentionally. This is why staying present matters. This is why listening matters. This is why answering matters. Close your eyes if you need to. Take a breath. Feel the weight of the moment, not as fear, but as recognition. Heaven is near. This is not imagination. This is awareness. And when you open your eyes, understand this. The shift does not begin later. It begins the moment you decide to answer. Chosen one, now that you are aware of the moment and aligned with the urgency of it, it is time to understand why you're able to stand here without being crushed by the weight of it. Nothing heaven releases comes without preparation, and nothing God accelerates arrives without testing. What you are stepping into did not suddenly appear. It has been forming quietly through seasons you once thought were meaningless. This is where recognition replaces doubt and understanding replaces confusion. You may not have realized it while you were walking through it, but heaven has been observing you closely, not with suspicion, not with disappointment, but with intention. Every delay you endured, every unanswered prayer, every closed door that forced you to wait longer than you wanted, none of it was wasted. You were not being punished. You were being prepared. And preparation often feels like invisibility because it happens when applause is absent and explanations are few. This is why this moment carries such authority. You're not being called forward as a beginner. You're being called forward as someone who has already been proven. Heaven does not entrust acceleration to untested faith. Speed without stability leads to collapse. But you have been stabilized through time, pressure, and endurance. You remain standing when it would have been easier to walk away. And that matters more than you know. There were moments when you questioned whether your persistence made sense. Moments when quitting felt logical, even wise. Moments when staying felt foolish because nothing seemed to be changing. Yet you stayed. Not loudly, not dramatically. You stayed quietly, consistently, faithfully. That was the first test, though you may not have known it then. The test of endurance. Endurance is not about strength. It is about refusal. Refusal to abandon what God planted in you. Even when the ground felt dry. You kept showing up when others disappeared. You kept believing when circumstances contradicted your faith. You kept moving forward, even if the movement was slow and unseen. That kind of perseverance does not go unnoticed in heaven. It marks you as someone who can be trusted with harvest. Because harvest requires patience before it ever brings reward. Then came another test, subtler but no less significant, the test of purity. This was not just about avoiding obvious wrongdoing. It was about guarding your heart when compromise was easier, about choosing integrity when shortcuts were available, about saying no to paths that promised faster results but demanded you trade pieces of yourself to get there. You resisted things that would have brought temporary gain but long-term damage. There were moments you could have justified compromise, moments when no one would have known, moments when bending your values would have seemed harmless. But you chose restraint. You chose to wait. You chose to remain clean in a world that rewards contamination. That choice shaped you more than you realize. Purity sharpens discernment. It keeps your spiritual senses clear. And in accelerated seasons, clarity is protection. The third test followed quietly, often disguised as obscurity, the test of humility. This test does not come with dramatic tension. It comes with silence, with being overlooked, with watching others be celebrated while you remain unseen, with serving faithfully when recognition never comes, with resisting the urge to prove yourself, defend yourself, or demand acknowledgement. You learn how to stay grounded when pride tried to rise. You learn how to keep your heart soft when bitterness tried to settle in. You learn how to honor God without applause. That kind of humility does something powerful. It creates space. Space for God to move without resistance. Space for favor to rest without corruption. Space for authority to grow without arrogance. These tests were not isolated events. They were layers, each one strengthening the next. Endurance gave you staying power. Purity gave you clarity. Humility gave you stability. Together, they formed a foundation strong enough to carry what is now being released. This is why heaven can accelerate you now without destroying you. You are not stepping into blessing unprepared. You are stepping into what has been held in reserve because the timing was not yet right. And now, because those tests have been passed, something shifts. The posture of heaven toward you changes, not because God's love changes, but because assignment does. What was once preparation becomes activation. What was once waiting becomes movement. What was once internal growth begins to produce external fruit. This is why you're being asked to declare, I have passed, not as arrogance, but as agreement. Heaven responds to agreement. When you acknowledge what God has done in you, you align yourself with what God wants to do through you. Silence keeps things dormant. Declaration brings them into motion. You are not boasting. You are bearing witness. The moment you say yes fully, three things begin to activate simultaneously, even if you do not feel them immediately. The first is acceleration beyond your own effort. This is where things begin to happen that you did not plan, initiate, or force. Conversations open without your prompting. Doors move without your pushing. Favor finds you without explanation. This is not luck. This is angelic assistance responding to alignment. Angels are ministers assigned to support the purposes of God. Many have been waiting, not idle, but attentive, for your obedience to match heaven's timing. When alignment occurs, movement follows. Paths straighten. Resistance weakens. Opportunities emerge in places you never considered. You will notice that things begin to happen faster, smoother, with less struggle than before. That is not coincidence. That is support. But understand this clearly. All of this hinges on response. Heaven initiates, but does not override your will. You are invited, not forced. This is why physical acts of agreement matter. Standing up, raising your hands, speaking out loud. These actions are not rituals, they're alignment points. They engage your body, your voice, your will. They move faith from thought into action. When you say, I answer yes, I receive heaven's call, I step into my assignment, you are positioning yourself fully. You are stepping out of observer mode and into participant mode. You are telling heaven, I am ready to move when you move. And heaven responds to readiness. This does not mean you suddenly know every step. It means you trust the next one. Obedience rarely comes with full clarity. It comes with enough light to take the next step. And each step reveals the next. Faith grows in motion, not in hesitation. There's also a reason this moment feels intense. When alignment increases, resistance reacts. The enemy is not surprised by your breakthrough, but he is threatened by your obedience. And when he sees movement, he attempts disruption. This is why awareness is crucial. Distractions may increase. Old patterns may try to resurface. Doubt may whisper louder than before. Do not interpret resistance as failure. Interpret it as confirmation. The enemy does not fight what is not moving. He does not oppose what poses no threat. Resistance is often the echo of progress. Your role is not to engage it emotionally, but to remain focused spiritually. Clarity is your defense. As you move forward, remember this. You are not stepping into chaos. You are stepping into alignment. You are not late. You are on time. You are not underqualified. You are prepared. Heaven has not miscalculated. This moment did not arrive too soon or too late. It arrived precisely when you were ready to carry it. You are not being rushed. You are being released. And what comes next will confirm everything you have endured. Chosen one, as you step fully into alignment, it is essential to understand that every breakthrough carries with it a moment of guarding. What heaven opens, it also instructs you to protect. This is not because the blessing is fragile, but because your focus must remain clear while the shift is unfolding. Movement in the spirit always draws attention, and awareness becomes your greatest strength in this phase. You are not entering a season of ease without responsibility. You are entering a season of authority that requires discernment. There is something you must not misinterpret in the coming hours and days. When heaven begins to move, the enemy often responds with noise, not because he has power to stop what God is doing, but because distraction is his final tactic when delay no longer works. Expect it. Do not be startled by it. Sudden interruptions, emotional triggers, unnecessary conflicts, or thoughts that whisper, "This is too good to be true," may arise. These are not setbacks, they're signals. They reveal that alignment has occurred. Your role in this moment is not to analyze every disturbance, but to remain anchored. Do not engage emotionally with what is meant to divert you. Engagement gives distraction weight. Awareness dissolves it. You're being called to stand firm, not tense. Firmness does not mean rigidity. It means clarity. It means knowing where you're standing and why you are there. This is why declarations matter now more than ever. Words spoken with authority are not reactions. They're commands. When you say, I bind every distraction and release clarity and focus, you are not speaking into emptiness. You are establishing order. The spiritual realm responds to alignment expressed through speech. You are not fighting chaos. You are enforcing peace. As you do this, heaven begins to reveal structure to what once felt abstract. Breakthrough is not random. It follows order. This is why you are being given a timeline, not to pressure you, but to anchor your expectation. Faith thrives when it has something to hold on to. Heaven is inviting you to watch with intention, not anxiety. Within the next 7 days, you will notice the first sign. It may appear small, even ordinary. An email, a phone call, a thought that arrives with unusual clarity. A chance encounter. Do not dismiss it because it lacks drama. Seeds rarely announce themselves as trees. Small confirmations carry great significance because they mark the beginning of visible movement. This is heaven saying, I am in motion. Within 21 days, what has been stagnant will begin to shift. You may notice resistance loosening, conversations softening, doors that were firmly closed beginning to crack open. Something that felt immovable will show signs of flexibility. This stage tests your patience differently. You will be tempted to rush what has begun. Resist that urge. Acceleration does not mean forcing. It means cooperating with momentum. Within 30 days, breakthrough becomes undeniable. Not subtle, not questionable, tangible. The kind of movement that humbles you. The kind that confirms this moment was indeed a turning point. When it arrives, you will look back and recognize the precision of this season. You will see how every instruction, every declaration, every act of obedience aligned perfectly. This is why you are being instructed to mark the time. Write it down. Set reminders. Not because God forgets, but because remembering strengthens your faith. When you document what heaven is doing, you build testimony. Testimony does not just celebrate what has happened. It reinforces belief for what is still unfolding. Faith grows when memory is honored. But breakthrough does not sustain itself automatically. This is where participation becomes partnership. Heaven releases, and you steward. This is why you're being given specific actions, not as rules, but as anchors. Morning declarations are not repetition. They are reinforcement. Speaking truth daily recalibrates your focus. It aligns your thoughts with what heaven has already declared over you. Prayer becomes more intentional in this season. Instead of asking broadly, you begin asking precisely. Show me my next step. Reveal the first action I need to take. Clarity often arrives quietly. Pay attention to what continues to surface in your thoughts without effort. That is often guidance, not coincidence. Scripture becomes a map rather than a comfort. When you read stories of timing, acceleration, and divine intervention, you are not reading history. You are recognizing patterns. Esther, Isaiah, the Psalms, Joel, Ephesians, these are not random selections. They speak of positioning, protection, restoration, and authority. Let them shape your expectation. Consecration, too, plays a role here. When you anoint your doorways or declare authority over your space, you are not performing a ritual. You are establishing boundaries. You are declaring what is permitted and what is not. Physical acts paired with spiritual intent create alignment between environments and assignments. Your atmosphere matters. What surrounds you influences how clearly you hear. This is why guarding your atmosphere becomes crucial. Complaining weakens sensitivity. Worship strengthens it. For the next season, you are being invited to replace frustration with praise. Not because nothing is wrong, but because praise keeps your focus anchored upward. Sound shifts space. Music shapes atmosphere. Let what fills your environment support what heaven is doing. And then there is generosity. This may seem unrelated, but it is deeply connected. Generosity breaks stagnation. It disrupts scarcity thinking. When you bless someone else, whether through giving, serving, or encouraging, you align yourself with flow. What you release creates room for what is coming. Giving is not loss, it is movement. As you walk through this phase, declarations become the language of alignment. When you declare divine order over your steps, you are affirming guidance. When you renounce confusion, you are clearing mental space. When you speak favor, you are acknowledging access. These declarations are not wishes. They are agreements with what heaven has already authorized. Restoration, peace, acceleration, favor. These are not distant promises. They are active realities being activated through alignment. But remember this, breakthrough does not remove responsibility. It increases it. What you carry next will require maturity. And maturity is demonstrated not by excitement alone, but by consistency. This is also why vigilance matters. Not fear-based vigilance, but focused awareness. You do not need to look over your shoulder constantly. You simply need to remain present. When distractions attempt to pull you backward emotionally or mentally, recognize them for what they are, attempts to dilute your focus. You do not need to fight them. You simply need to refuse them. When you feel tempted to disengage, return to what anchored you. Your declarations, your reminders, your alignment. Stand firm without strain. Authority does not shout, it stands. Confidence does not rush, it remains steady. Peace becomes your posture as the timeline unfolds. Allow gratitude to lead. Gratitude sharpens perception. It helps you notice movement you might otherwise overlook. It keeps your heart open and receptive. Gratitude does not wait for completion. It responds to progress. And finally, remember that you are not walking this alone. Heaven moves with you. Angels are dispatched ahead of you. Favor is being released in rooms you have not yet entered. Conversations are unfolding without your presence. Decisions are being influenced beyond your awareness. This is not fantasy, it is coordination. You are stepping into a season where effort meets assistance, where obedience meets acceleration, where faith meets fulfillment. What was once promised is now unfolding. What was once hidden is now emerging. And as you continue forward, you will realize something profound. This was never about rushing you into something you were not ready for. It was about aligning you with what was already waiting. Stay present. Stay aligned. Stay responsive. The breakthrough is not approaching. It is already in motion. Chosen one, as everything now comes together, this is the moment where intention becomes sealing. What has been spoken is not meant to drift away as inspiration. It is meant to take root, settle deep, and produce visible fruit. This is why we do not end this moment casually. We end it deliberately with agreement, gratitude, and authority. When heaven speaks, response completes the circuit. And now, we respond together. Take a moment to recognize what you have already done. You stayed. You listened. You did not scroll past. That alone is evidence of readiness. Attention is a form of honor, and honor creates access. By remaining present, you demonstrated alignment with what heaven is releasing. This is not about earning anything. It is about positioning yourself to receive what was already prepared. As we seal this moment, understand that nothing you endured was wasted. Every delay refined you. Every disappointment strengthened discernment. Every closed door redirected you toward the right one. That what felt like loss was often protection. What felt like silence was often instruction forming beneath the surface. Heaven does not forget effort, endurance, or faithfulness. It records them, and now it responds. This is where prayer becomes declaration. You are not asking for permission. You are standing in agreement. Distractions lose their authority. Confusion loosens its grip. Fear no longer dictates direction. In their place, clarity settles in. Courage rises. Acceleration begins to feel natural rather than overwhelming. Peace guards your heart, not as an escape, but as strength. As you move forward from this moment, let your response remain active. Type answer as a visible declaration and add one word that reflects what you are believing for: restoration, clarity, provision, healing, breakthrough. Words shape focus, and focus shapes movement. Let heaven see your agreement, not because it needs proof, but because agreement activates partnership. Carry this awareness with you in the coming days. Watch for the signs. Honor the small confirmations. Trust the unfolding. Share what is spoken to you, not to convince others, but to multiply alignment. Obedience releases momentum, and momentum attracts favor. And remember this as you step into what is next. You were never meant to walk this path alone. Heaven is active. Support is present. Timing is aligned. The next 30 days will speak for themselves. Stay expectant. Stay grounded. Stay responsive. Your breakthrough season has not been announced. It has begun.